business, biceps, a little BS. Fitness mixed with finance, now you're really gonna see us as we're learning, growing. All your minds we're blowing, earning while we're burning. Shirts are tight, so games are showing. Resolve, evolve, absolve, it's time to make a move. Better check yourself, cause if you're doubting, no, we got the proof. Voices speaking loud, cause we're proud about what we can do. Tickling your ears with CPE, rooted in the truth.
It's probably the closest thing to Disney that you can see in Savannah. It's as I would say the Savannah Bananas are pretty Disney from a fun, goofy smile place, but it's like Harry Potter. I mean, it's really cool, very extremely well done for like new creative students who are coming into that environment. For them, this is their red carpet rollout. You don't go on you can't go on a campus tour, but the campus is so spread out that this is the way that they kind of introduce everybody to the story, and it's incredible. And it doesn't take very long. You exit through the gift shop, of course, but yeah, really, really, really cool. So if that's something that if you're looking for something to do right in the early morning, again, you could just do it whenever.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. I like that. Thanks for the tip.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna set this at 54.
How long have you been living down there?
Just over 3 years now.
Okay.
So I came down in what, 22? Yeah, 22.
And where did you move from?
Rome, Georgia, actually.
Oh, okay. So still in state. Gotcha.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It was kind of bittersweet. I really enjoyed Rome. We had tons of friends up there. Of course, that's where my boys grew up. So all of your friend group is where that's where your children are, right? And there they grew up. So it's kind of sad to leave them there, but it was time. It was time to go. It was. Jen and I really wanted to get back to the beach. I grew up in Cocoa Beach. She grew up in Tallahassee, and we're just Florida people. When we lived in Tampa, we absolutely loved it. In fact, if Tampa came calling, we'd probably go to Tampa. We have a bunch of friends down there, but the Bay Area, it's just gorgeous down there.
Yeah.
And it's one of those places where we just wanted to get back to where we could touch grass, and like the water was real.
Yeah.
Right? Well, the water up in Rome is brown, but that's because they have three rivers running through it, and they're all and most of them are coming from Dalton, which is a carpet factory. So it's like, oh man, I'm not going to be swimming in those rivers. But yeah, so you might walk outside and you can taste the salt in the air.
Yeah.
You know? So
my daughter went to, I don't know if I told you this. My daughter went to University of Tampa, and
cool.
And she stayed there. She's actually moving back, but she went 4 years and then worked in Tampa for 3, and we love it there. I mean, what they've done to downtown Water Street along the Riverwalk and everything is amazing. It's such a great town.
Yeah, I like it. It's and they've done a lot with it recently. There's a lot of the Riverside area that they built up. Channelside was a big deal when I was down there, but that was back in like 2002, 2004. Yeah. But nowadays, with the river, the entire thing is set up, and it's built up, and it's very nice. It's like what you would see over in California, like on a like in not Long Beach. Long Beach is kind of a weird one, but. Like when they have those long piers along the beach, so they did that right next to the river. Of course, when the bay comes in and out, the river goes up and down. But they've done a really good job of building it up to where you can take that thing all the way down, almost follow the river down into downtown, and then come back out. Right. It's very, very nice.
Our conference next year is in Tampa.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it's at the 2 Marriott properties there, right on the Riverwalk, the JW, and then the one across from it on Water.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, we'll be there in June, obviously, but it's a great town. Love it.
You gonna shout out your safe word when we're ready to rock? We're rocking.
We're rocking.
We're rocking and roll. Yeah. So usually there's like a flare that goes over because they're behind me. So it's like, hey. No, anyway. So yeah, of the Tampa, the entire Tampa place. So I used to work in that beer can when I first started my career at PwC. I worked in that beer can down there. I think it's the Sykes building now. And
Oh yeah,
so,
yes.
so I remember specifically, I have one of my best and worst memories in that building, and it was specifically there was a job that I was on, and it was an airplane part supplier. I was the staff on the job. I had found something that was a little bit kind of weird. These days, the kids would call it sus, and it was one of those things where the manager was sick. I mean, like really sick. Like when he would cough, you could hear all the stuff coming up in his lungs. Like, dude, you stay home. I don't want to get sick. And so, so I was reporting directly to the senior manager, which you know, in public accounting, I mean, a staff talking to a senior manager, it's like that's about as scary as talking to the partner, right?
Right.
So I'm working directly with the senior manager, and I found an issue. I won't say well, I didn't find it. It just kind of found me, where are you familiar with the scope limitation? You've heard of those from an auditing perspective?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, so a scope limitation in the sense of, hey, I need to look at this period of time, and the gentleman told me, he's like, well, I can't give you that, and I was like, well, that's kind of strange. Is that you don't want to give it to me, or you just can't? He goes, no, our system physically can't do it. You'd have to jump into your DeLorean and go back to December 31st to get the stuff on that day, and I was like, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I said, okay, well then, can you just give me what you have? And so it was like, you know, the audit at the time was maybe in February or March, and so I'm working on data that's 2 or 3 months old. And so I made the notice to the senior manager, again, just completely freaking out, because like, oh my gosh, this is what we talked about in school. This is a scope limitation. I'm supposed to disclaim the opinion, right? And of course the partner looks at us like, what in the world are you doing, dude? You are a staff. You have no idea what you're talking about. Which at the time he was probably right. But come to find out, I was right. They actually had a much bigger issue with their inventory. And it just so happened that the guy, like their software was kind of the scapegoat that they tried to use to say, oh, well, I didn't know. Well, actually, there was actually fraud going on there. And it was because of this pulling of the thread. Oh, what? And then you can see, like, the cartoon where the sweater goes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all of a sudden, it became like a really big deal. But my best and worst memory was, I remember sitting in the conference room on, like, I think they were on the 22nd or 23rd floor of that building. And you know that building, it looks like a giant screw, like a flathead screw. And so you look through, well, the conference room was on that area, and I could see the bay, and I could see the sun going down over the bay, and it was gorgeous. But I was also being yelled at by the senior manager at the same time. It's like, who the heck do you think you are? You're the staff. You have to take that letter out of the work papers. And I was like, I saw what I saw, man. I was told to put the letter in the file and do not remove it. And it became a big deal. I mean, years later, it was people were reprimanded by the state of Florida for signing off on opinions that weren't supposed to be signed off on.
Let me get some water before we...
Yeah, go get it.
Start.
Go get it.
All right.
I'm excited. We are, so I'm going to start this timer. Showing. What you got? Are you still getting an echo? Oh, thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah, we need him to be spotlight the whole time.
Perfect.
Talk and see if it goes back to you.
Yep. It's not coming back to me. Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Okay. Did we change the settings to make that happen?
No, it just started doing it. Did he log off or log on or anything?
No.
So Tim, where did he go?
Get some water.
All right.
That's what we did in the past, right? We spotlight him.
Yeah, we may have. I don't know what we've done previously, but yeah, we can do that in the future.
A second.
We're playing with the tech real quick to make sure that you are spotlit.
Spotlit. Okay.
Yeah.
You have a nice.
Looks good now.
Yeah,
nice background there.
Done it.
You like that? Is it so the purple and what is this over here? This, I don't know how tight the frame is on your screen, but on the podcast it's actually much tighter.
Yeah.
So,
Well, yeah, no, I see you, I see me, and I see Georgia Society of CPAs. So.
that's good. And I have my mug here that says Georgia Society CPAs. So when I drink it, huh?
This camera's working on today. I see.
So whoever's speaking, it's pulling.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that.
I removed the
Okay.
spotlight on me. I don't know if you're.
We need.
Can you turn off the camera on that one? Because you should be being shown here with that.
I can, but then that's going to be strange. But I can do that.
No, you're fine. If you've never done it in the past, it shouldn't be the reason.
Yeah, I can turn it off. That's fine.
But that's showing up.
Yeah, you don't want that. Because you don't want to pop in. You just want him total, right? So you can have the freedom to.
We just want him. Yeah.
So if you go to gallery
Let's do gallery.
and then click on him in the top right, you should be able to pin him.
And then try that again.
So Mike, just a little test here. So talk for me real quick.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I think this is going to do
That
it.
doesn't work. Pin works.
I think we just pin him. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, you got your water? You ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready to go.
So we are with Mike DePrisco. I say that right?
Yeah, you got it. DePrisco.
Is it
that's
capital
good.
D, capital P?
Bingo.
That sounds Italian?
Italian. That's Italian. Yeah.
You talk with your hands?
Always. It's very, very challenging to keep my hands down below. I need to be up here.
That's fantastic. No, so Mike DePrisco, CEO of the Institute of Management Accountants. And so people are kind of right out of the gates and are like, what's a management accountant? Mike, what's a management accountant? Can you define that for me?
Oh, Tim, we get that question all the time, right? So there's public accounting, you work in tax and audit. Management accountants work in business. They're the accounting and finance professionals that are helping your organization move forward and achieve its strategic objectives, right? They're your controllers, they're your budget people, FP&A people, analysts, right? They're the people getting it done in your organization.
Well, so you and I met through Nick Aracco in the CFO Alliance, right? And
yeah.
one of the things that I've become very aware of recently is that not all CFOs have CPA licenses, and
That's
in fact,
right.
not all CFOs have accounting degrees, right? And so from let's just shatter the misnomer right now that that a CFO is an accounting degree holding CPA, because from what I understand is that that there are CFOs from all different backgrounds who just happen to have the moxie, the right mix of skills and experience in order to be able to take on the financial role, the strategic financial role. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you need that accounting degree to get there, that finance degree to get there. Sometimes it's math, sometimes it's stats, sometimes it's marketing, which is kind of strange in the finance sense. But one of the things that I've noticed inside the IMA, specifically the IMA, is that people, when you start talking about the CPA exam, people are like, well, hold on a second. Not everybody here has a CPA. So tell me a little bit about this, because this is something that I don't think it's something that people get upset about, but it is certainly something that you need to know going into the IMA that, hey, these are accountants first, and maybe some of them have other designations and licenses and what have you to perform in different areas. But for the most part, these are all professional accountants first.
Yeah, no, Tim, I'm glad you raised this, because look, in the U.S., it's estimated that there's about 1.5 million accountants, right? And I think there's about 40% of those have a CPA license, right? There's a lot of people working in accounting and finance who are not CPAs, right? The way I think about it is there's a variety of different career pathways and tracks you can take when working in accounting and finance. There's public accounting, which is tax and audit, compliance, those kinds of things. And typically you need a CPA to work in that environment. And then there's management accounting, or accounting and finance and business, right? And that's where IMA really plays, right? And supporting those individuals who are really working on strategy execution, partnering with the business to develop business cases, to analyze risk, to apply foresight and decision-making support to help organizations perform better, right? And I think one of the big misperceptions out there is that there's only one prescribed way for accounting and finance, and that's public accounting. And what I'm here to say is that that's not the case. There's a lot of different options, and I think the more that we can tell that story, and help young people make decisions about different pathways in accounting and finance, I think the better off we'll be, as a profession in terms of being able to attract more people to the profession. I kind of think of it as a high tide lifts all boats, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what I like about that is that specifically, you and I have talked a lot about students. In fact, it was one of the reasons why when I said, "Hey, I got this fledgling podcast," and what you just said was a conversation that we had. I think it was out in Scottsdale. Actually, it was at the conference. You guys had their conference out there, and so CFOA had their little CFOA track, if you will. And one of the things that really energized me about the IMA was how what you guys were doing specifically for the student body, for not just the juniors and seniors in the university who are rising and coming into their careers, right? But also you guys have a burgeoning high school curriculum that's actually starting to get a lot of notice, specifically out in the California area. There's money being pushed into high schools for now. It's STEM, and you and I've had this conversation. Where does STEM, where does accounting fall in the STEM? Is it a science? Is it technology? Is it engineering? Is it math? I tend to think that it's the A in the STEAM, right?
Yes.
And it's the art of business because it is a language. We'll talk about that a little bit more. But you guys, your curricula that you throw out there for your high schools and for your community colleges and your inside your upper level juniors and seniors and university, it's pretty stout.
Yeah.
So, unpack that for me, because I think there's a lot of students out there that they're probably using your resources and have no idea who's the source.
Right. Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And look, there's a lot of information about the pipeline of students choosing accounting, not choosing accounting. This past year, I think enrollment in accounting programs was up about 12%. That's the first time. It's the first time we saw growth in several years. However, we don't believe it's the beginning of a trend. In fact, we know there is an enrollment cliff coming. Less students graduating from high school means less students going into college. And if we don't tell a compelling story about the career opportunities in accounting and finance, we're going to be struggling to get qualified, talented people. So with that as the backdrop, right, IMA is really focused on how do we nurture, identify, and provide a path and open the eyes to these young people about career possibilities and career options. So one of the things that we did, just based on what we were hearing from the faculty that we connect with, we have over 120 colleges and universities that are endorsed by IMA, which means they've aligned their curriculum to many of our certifications. Based on that feedback, we introduced a new certification called the FMAA, and it's a foundational certification. And to your point, it's a curriculum that's really focused on fundamental knowledge, terminology, competencies around accounting and managerial accounting and finance. And it's really meant to kind of, get people's feet wet, if you will, and to get them to experience a little bit about what this profession is all about, with the idea that, if we can pique their curiosity early, we may be able to capture them for the long term in terms of having them select accounting as a career choice. So we're seeing some good interest in that. Yes, certainly there's opportunities at the high school level, but we're also seeing at the community college level, junior colleges, academic programs, at major universities, things like that. And I'll tell you one other thing. I speak at a lot of universities. Faculty invite me in, and I speak to students and principals of accounting classes. And oftentimes I will get students coming up to me and they're like, hey, I'm going into general business. I'm not majoring in accounting. I'm just taking this class because I have to. Or, hey, you know what? I'm going into the law profession. And, what do you think? Should I do this FMAA thing that you have here? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. Because that kind of knowledge is going to carry you forward a long way, whatever career path you take, right? Everyone needs to understand the fundamentals of accounting and finance if they're working in business. So that's kind of been our take on it, and it's resonating, I think.
Well, I'm glad because we do know that there's a pipeline issue that's coming, and even though there's that little false flag that happened recently of that there's a little bit of spike in the applications, what have you, it still feels like there's that tentativeness for people to want to go into the accounting field, and so I just had a conversation with a gentleman. In fact, I think he was either at the IMA or he was at the Cal CPA. I don't know how this gentleman found me, but he's reached out to me on LinkedIn, and he is a freshman at Drexel University. Go Dragons! And just out of nowhere, he shoots me a note, says, "Hey, I've seen your background. I like how your career has progressed. Would you have maybe 15 minutes to just kind of go through what I'm thinking for my scholastic career and just see if we can get some advice." Like, you know what, let's do that. So my wife and I, we was on the way back from this we went to a wedding in like Podunk, Virginia. I can't even tell you where it was. All I know is I think I found the Roanoke colony. As we were driving back, this gentleman calls me, and he tells me, he says I asked him, first of all, the big question, what are you majoring in? And he says, well, I plan to major in MIS, right, Management Information Systems, and do something on the side with maybe some marketing or maybe some data analytics. And I said, well, what out of those three do you really want to do? And he's like, well, I really like the data analytics side. I was like, okay. I said, walk with me for a second. I said, why MIS? And he's like, well, because I think that will give me the foundation where I want to go with the data analytics. I said, no, I think it will. I said, but have you heard of a little thing called AI? And he says, yeah. I said, so you're going to be taking a curriculum today for a job that you're going to take in 5 years. And do you think AI might, I don't know, push its way into that degree?
That's right.
And he's like, well, I didn't really think about that. I said, of course the university is not going to tell you that because they want people to sign up for their MIS degree, right? I said, but let me just give you an alternate path. I said, you want to do data analytics in the future? Yes, that's where I want to do like sports statistics and stuff like that. Great, it's even sport related. I can help you with the sports stuff, right? I said, but let's just think about it this way. Why? I said, what if you went back to like the minimum or the basics and said, what would it take to just make sure a business could run? What if you got an accounting degree as a bachelor's, right? And then I said, and I know you don't have to go in public accounting. You don't have to get your CPA license. You don't have to do the typical route that a lot of accountants do. Everybody looks at an accountant and goes, oh, they're going to be a CPA. They're going to work for a firm. They're going to work long hours during the opportunity season and things like that. I mean, it's a great life if you have it. But yeah, you do. You work hard. I said, but if you really bust your butt for the next 4 years and get that accounting degree, then go get a master's in sports analytics, sports MIS, whatever it is. You will have the foundation, like what you said, Mike, is you will have the foundation of how to run the business. Not only that, when you're doing your data analytics and your sports statistics and what have you, you will actually know why that even resonates for an organization. Because at the end of the day, it's not to keep fans happy on the stats that they're looking at over years upon years of just like baseball traditionalists or football fantasy football folks. At the end of the day, they need these statistics because they need to know how it affects the bottom line.
That's right.
And so as we started talking about this, he finally comes around and he goes, yeah, maybe I'll have a conversation with my counselor. And I said, listen, if you need to have a follow-up conversation, if you want me to talk to your counselor, I can do that. You got to sign the FERPA notice. But I said, I want you to think about the alternative. The other thing too is if you have an MIS degree, again, nothing wrong with the degree, just kind of read the room here. AI is coming for those jobs, and they will be the first ones it comes for, because when you're an MIS, you're not only dealing with data, you're dealing with the consulting side. Well, I don't need to go after a consultant in MIS to understand technology anymore. I basically just type it up into ChatGPT. It gives me a rundown, and I just picked what the one that fits my scenario the best.
Yeah.
In accounting, where people say, "Oh, AI is coming for accounting jobs," it might come for like the laborious, the tedious stuff, like the bank reconciliations or the cash confirmations, things like that. Good, take it. I don't ever want to do a cash confirmation again, and either do you, right? If you've ever done them, they're a giant pain in the butt. However, but the discipline is not going away. It is the heartbeat of every single organization that's out there, and if you know how to keep that business alive through the debits, the credits, the revenues, the expenses, and when we get down to managerial accounting, the different variances and cost and direct materials and the labor, the process, the throughput. I mean, I keep going. I could drop buzzwords all day long. That's the goal. And so when we start talking to the students. And they look at they say, well, I was told that I need to be a CPA. Like, hold on a second. You can be a CPA, but you got to get that accounting. You got to get that accounting degree first.
Yeah.
Now, now that we have this 150-hour rule it's basically being torn down like the walls of Jericho all over the place. Now you have to have these couple of years of experience. What I see that's going to happen, it's already started happening in the CPA world. You have people that are just not going after the CPA licenses anymore, and I don't think that's a good thing. There's certainly opportunity for people with accounting degrees out there, and it's being proven because they're getting jobs and they don't have CPA licenses, right? But what I see there is that as people are moving into their careers or already in their careers, they're looking for something that sets them apart from the hoi polloi accounting people. That says, okay, if I get that CPA license, I am a CPA. Now I know that the IMA has a designation that is pretty darn awesome. It's been around for a little while, has global acceptance. Tell me about this designation and why it's important to a general accountant to maybe take the study, take the test, and get this designation.
There's so much that you said there that I want to respond to.
Okay, good.
Leading up,
as long as you lead with your hands.
Leading up to the CMA piece, but I agree in the sense that I do think I'm with you 100%. I think accounting and finance professionals are at the tip of the spear in a business, right? They know everything. They know what's going on. And if they're doing it right, they're really a strategic business partner, right, within the organization. And people are leveraging them for their knowledge, for their insight, their perspective, and they're really helping to inform decisions and shape strategy. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And I think when you're talking to young people and you explain it that way, they're like, oh, I didn't realize I could be doing those types of things. So segue to CMA, our certification, that's what that certification is all about, right? It's focused 100% on helping you be effective in a business environment and applying accounting and finance principles, knowledge, competencies to your job day in and day out. And it gives you validation. It validates a certain skill level. It validates a certain knowledge that you have, an understanding of competencies, and it gives your employer confidence that you know what you're talking about, quite frankly, right? So again, there's a lot of different certifications out there on the market. I think the bigger question is more about, how are we ensuring that we are giving young people all the information they need to make the choice that's best for them, right? As opposed to telling them they have to do this or do that, right? I mean, students today, young people, right? They're pretty smart. They're pretty savvy, a lot more savvy than I was when I was 18, 19, 20 years old. And when I'm in front of students, they ask some really good questions too, right? So they're doing their homework and they're talking to a lot of people. They've had helicopter parents, they've had mentors, right? They've had all this input.
They lived through COVID.
right?
They lived through COVID.
They lived through COVID, right? So they get it. And a lot of them want to do their own thing, right? They want to be entrepreneurs, right? They want to go out and set up their own digital business, that kind of thing. Great. But, right, it's not a matter of just setting up your business. You have to know how to run a business. You're in business to stay in business. And having accounting and finance acumen, knowledge, a degree, you know, that's gonna help you major in terms of being successful in the workplace. So
Absolutely agree. And so one of my default forms, if you will, if any student ever comes up to me and says, hey, this is what I'd like to do in the future, because they say, usually what they do is when they're in their accounting class, they come to their professor and they say, yeah, I'm taking this class. So you already said it. So because I have to, because I want to play sports and and it's part of the curriculum. And of course, you hear the C's get degrees, right? And I was like, I'll tell you what, you keep getting C's, you're not going to be playing very often. You might get a degree, but you're not going to be playing. But one of the things that I keep going back to is that when finally we've been around these students long enough, and by the way, this can happen inside the professional arena too. I mean, you're talking about young staff that you're mentoring, and they're looking up the ladder going, maybe I want to do this, maybe I don't want to do this. I find this interesting. Where am I going to go? What do I want to do? I usually encourage them. I say, look, your default principle should be go after that accounting degree. Just bust your butt for those 4 years and get it. Yeah, is it going to be hard? Yes. Are you going to party as much as your marketing friends? No, but you will when you get out. When you will be buying them beer because none of them have any jobs. So, there was this is actually kind of funny. There's a movie that my wife and I really love. It's called Bring It On. It's a cheerleading movie, and we have no daughters, but she was a cheerleader in high school, and so and I'm into musical theater and stuff like that. But anyway, there's this one part where the cheerleaders are facing off on the side of the football track, and like they're jawing something, they're jawing back and forth. And finally, the girls they go, that's all right, that's okay. You're gonna pump our gas someday. And it's like, oh, of course the crowd's like, blah, and then they start doing their little kicks and their jumps and stuff like that. But the way I look at it is that when you're running through, if you have the opportunity, if you're a freshman, sophomore, even if you're a junior and you have the ability to coax mom and dad to say, I want to change my major, I really think that accounting degree basis is what can take you to that next level, even if you can't see it right now. Yeah. Because then you go get the master's degree, then you get that extra designation, then you go and take like maybe a certificate, what's it called? Certificate course. Yeah. Maybe you want to go into spot welding. If you have an accounting degree, do you know how? Yeah, you can do anything with the degree. That's what I'm saying. Is that no matter where you go with it, you will always have it in your quiver. And that's what I think students really need to understand here is that if you're hemming and hawing on whether or not what you should do, you should do it. Now, then you run into the issue of, but it's hard. Yes. It is going to be a little bit more difficult than your normal curriculum. But because you're doing the hard stuff now, when you get out into the real world, you're going to be doing more challenging and exciting things based on the knowledge that you're going to learn for this, next 4 years of your life, 5, 7, 10 years of your life. But it just opens up so many more doors. Yeah. And go ahead.
Well, think about it. Every organization on the planet, needs an accounting and finance staff.
Absolutely.
Everyone.
Yep.
So think about it. You're a student who aspired to work in sports and entertainment. Well, you can take your accounting degree and go do that. Or maybe you want to work at the biggest software company in the world. Well, if you have an accounting degree, you can go apply and work in their accounting department, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, to your point, there's so many opportunities because that skill set is in such high demand and is so needed in every organization. Every business is in business to stay in business, and accounting and finance people help that happen. Hey, I want to address something you said about curriculum being hard. Sometimes I think we make it too hard. So I hear a lot of talk about the principles of accounting course, right? And there's some faculty have this perception that it's a badge of honor, like it's a weed out class.
It's a weed out
right?
class.
It's a weed out class.
We're
right?
gonna get the cream of the crop.
Yeah, that's right. And I think we need, and while I understand that perception, I don't think we're doing ourselves as a profession, right, any favors, right? I'd like to see us, pull more students into the accounting programs on our campuses. And so how can we make that principles course, something that people get excited about? Right, as opposed to a weed out class. There's intermediate that can weed out, right?
Yeah, sure.
But from a principal's perspective, how do we get them excited about the work of accounting? How do we really expand that net? I think you've said that, right? We've had this conversation, and grow the pie, because that's a critical class. And I know a lot of universities put their best faculty in the principals class now, because they really want faculty who can connect with students and inspire students and get students to see accounting for the dynamic career that it is. So we have to do more of that. And, I work with the AAA, American Accounting Association.
Sure.
I'm part of a committee that really is focused on the pipeline. It's called FASO, Future Accounting Sponsoring Organizations. And we fund a lot of initiatives that are designed to help bring more young people into the profession. And one of the things we've been funding is a Principles of Accounting course boot camp. We're taking best of principles curriculum and going out and training faculty on how they can better position accounting as a career option and pull more students in.
So I'm curious, as you're doing that, is it resonating with the professors, or are they throwing up like blockers, like, no, this is just not the way we do this?
Right. I think it's delicate. Some faculty get it, right? Some want complete, independence in terms of autonomy and how they're going to teach their class, and that's fine. But I think what I see when we're together with faculty, and I was at the AAA conference, in August in Chicago, I think everyone sees the challenge in front of us as it relates to less and less students choosing accounting as an academic program. Notwithstanding the increase that we saw this past year, I think most people understand the enrollment cliff that's coming, and they're thinking very hard about how do we attract the smaller pool of students that's going to be available. How do we capture more of those in our accounting degree programs so that we have classes to teach, we have students to inspire, right? So I think more and more faculty are getting on board with the notion that we need to kind of relook at how we do things and really pivot and adjust to what students are looking for from an academic degree program.
Well, one of the things, I have a little story for you, because that's what I do. I tell stories, and we're going to talk about storytelling in just a minute. There was a challenge that I was having a challenge with a tax partner at a local firm, regional firm that I was working with years ago.
Yeah.
And I was on the campus recruiting team. We would go to Florida State, we'd go to University of Florida, we'd go to University of South Florida. Those were our main ones. I think University of West Florida was also on our docket. And we were just trying to do something different, right? We were talking about, what's your CPA life? And so we had done this thing that was completely different. We would show up in like Hawaiian shirts. And, because at the time, everybody's, button down polos, you have your logo on your shirt, and, your hair's just so, the girls are in their pressed skirts and their blouses and what have you. And like, guys, if you want to continue going down this path of just getting this mold of a CPA and trying to stuff that square peg into that round hole, it's like we're missing the point. What we're doing is that when we're jamming that square peg into that round hole, we're cutting off all these corners that make these individuals the people who they are. And so by the end of the curriculum, by the time that they come into our profession, we basically turn them into just the normal vanilla CPA. It's like, you can't have a personality, you can't do all these things, which is completely opposite. I know tons of accountants who are really fun to be around, and they have so many varied interests that it's like, man, if we got everybody in a room, there might be two people that are very similar from a numbers or an experience perspective, but our backgrounds, we are so diverse, and we have so much to bring to the table. what I told him is I said, hey, when we're out here and we're looking at these resumes, he's like, well, I just want to I want to have the 4 O's. And tap the brakes, brother. And say, first of all, if you just want 4 O's, you are going to get the same person year in and year out that is going to sit behind that door, and they're going to crank work for you, and they're going to be probably good employees because 4.0 in accounting means that you've done, you're pretty good at the fundamentals. So, but don't you want people who can actually go out and sell business too, who are going to go to the young CPAs and the young lawyers, the young bar, and actually make those connections so that, I don't know, maybe 5, 7, 10 years from now, when they're the partners, they're actually selling business to pay for your golden parachute. He's like, Natty, you're out of your mind. We have plenty of diversity here. I was like, you want to put your money where your mouth is? Yeah, I'll do it. Okay, let's do a personality test. And I guarantee you that everybody in here tests out as a CPA. He's like, okay, we'll do it. So he did. He paid for it. And we had 80 professionals, and there was a handful of administrative staff that that didn't have the CPA license, right? So they were kind of pulled to the side. But everybody took it. And of the 78 professionals that took it, they only two people tested out not a CPA. One of them was a tax director who I knew from the Tampa when I worked for PwC in Tampa, and she was the most fun person to be around. I mean, you were like, you do taxes? It's like when people look at you and they like a dog hears something, you're like, huh? You're a CPA? And so I would normally get that as well. So she tested, she was not a CPA. When I got my results, this was the DISC personality test. Yeah. I tested out as a used car salesman, and I went back to that partner and I said, I told you we need to change the way we recruit. We need to go after the 3 3s, the 3 4s, the 3 5s, the 3 6s, who can talk about something other than accounting. Because when you're talking with the client, when you're talking to employees, you're not talking about accounting all the time. You're talking about life. You're talking about economics. Sometimes you don't really want to, but sometimes you're talking about politics. Sometimes you're talking about the youth baseball game. You're talking about something that has something that people wear on their sleeves because they're passionate about it. They're talking about Harley Davidson motorcycles. You're talking about beach volleyball. I mean, I could rip off a whole bunch of things. What you're not talking about, and what accountants is one of the reasons why this podcast is kind of fun, is that we don't talk about accounting on this podcast. We talk around it, but it's because you and I share that common bond of being in accounting that I think makes this podcast work. Yeah. But we have so many other interests out there that don't define us as an accountant. They define us as an individual. That's the net that we should be trying to throw out there. So when people are when they're told this principles, I think at University of Florida we called it generations, which I think is kind of a funny name to call it. I think they've changed it since then. But as you come into that class, basically this was the first course that you had. This is the gauntlet, and if you can't survive this class, you were basically told, do not follow accounting. And that's when I look at that. Well, then if that's the case, if we're weeding out really like diverse backgrounds and experiences and just all these things that we want to be richer in our environment, but we're weeding them out on the front end, then they run through the process, and then by the time they get to the back end, they're all the same cookie cutter person. But then they go to the firms, and we weed them out even further. We're at the firms. Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of wisdom in what you're saying about casting a wider net, getting that diversity to come into our programs. Now the question is, how do we entice them to come in? Yeah. Is it a change in curriculum? Is it a change in mindset? Is it this particular professors that are delivering this information? And you got to have the ones that are a little bit more banal in the way that they approach these things, or there's one that can't, feels like they are just a talking coffee pot and is coming out to you and making illustrations, using cartoons, using all these different things to really land the plane. But that seems to be where we're stuck right now, is that even if we were to cast that giant net, what in the curriculum is going to change to make them want to stay?
Yeah. I think the way that I would characterize what you're saying is that, to be successful, right, it's a combination of having strong technical skills and capabilities, right? That's table stakes today, right? So whatever academic program you enroll in, right? You got to meet the requirements. You got to do the work. You got to get the degree. There's another component though. It's the human skills.
There you go.
Right? It's the leadership ability. It's the curiosity. It's the ability to tell stories, right? And I know we're going to talk a little bit about accountants as storytellers. It's the ability to communicate and collaborate and work together as a team. That's what's really going to differentiate somebody in the workplace from, a mediocre performer to a high performer, right?
Sure.
You could have all the knowledge, all the technical capability, but if you can't communicate, if you can't collaborate, you're not going to be successful in the workplace. So if I could wave a magic wand and say how can the curriculum change or adjust to meet the needs of what businesses need, it would be that, right? It would be, how do we infuse more of the human side of business into the curriculum, because that's what these kids really need. And by the way, technology is going to automate some of the, mundane tasks of accounting. As you said, you still need to understand it, but the accountant of the future is going to be all about data interpretation, data storytelling, weighing in on innovative ideas, giving your opinion, speaking up, right? Storytelling. So, I think that is really an important component to how we train accountants and how we develop them along the way. The other thing I'll say this is, I tell students this all the time: get a good degree, do the work, right? But recognize that that's just the beginning of your learning journey. Like the real learning, starts once you have that degree. You need that degree, right? That gives you permission to go out in the world and say, hey, I'm a knowledge worker.
There you go.
I know how to think. I can solve problems. I can help your organization. But you know what? I need to continue on that learning journey. So whether it's certification, whether it's taking courses, whether it's, being connected to organizations that offer, continuous education, that is really important as well. And we need to do more of that in our preparation programs as well. We oftentimes are like, okay, you get your bachelor's degree, then your master's degree, right? Okay, you're good, you're set, done. We leave out the fact that you need to be learning all the time into your 30s, 40s, 50s, right? 60s, until you're done, until you retire. You need to be investing in your personal and professional development. And I think that is something that's missing in the broader context of how we train and educate our students.
So I'm fortunate enough to be able to be an adjunct professor for Savannah College of Art and Design in the Savannah area. Every once in a while, come to the Atlanta campus. I'm waiting for them to give me the nod to go to Lacoste, France, and do some. We haven't talked about this, the compatibilité au chocolat, right? So the chocolate accounting. But that would be super fun. I mean, they speak French in Switzerland too, right? So. Don't they? It's like a French, maybe, I don't know, I'm getting pumpkin spice and French mocha, all this stuff. But when I completely lost that trail. When developing these students, I think that we talk about what can we add to the curriculum in order to actually keep them engaged. And we keep going back to storytelling. There's something about being able to connect all the dots in a not a fanciful way, not a flippant way, but in a way that actually makes sense, because I think we as humans, we are designed, just like otters are designed to be, they can't be alone. There's supposed to be at least two of them, because they're so darn cute, and they knock those things, like the river ones, they take those river things, they knock it with rocks, and then they eat it. It's really awesome. But humans they engage through storytelling. And people who are really good storytellers, people gravitate to those individuals. And they could be just spinning yarns, they could be making things up, whatever it is, but there's something about the story that lands the plane. And we used to tell stories all the time, parables in the Bibles, Aesop's fables. I mean, all civilizations have had throughout the years some type of storytelling in order to deliver wisdom through morals or ethics, or in this case, what we're talking about is if you have a financial statement in front of you and you put a bunch of numbers in front of a mom and pop who maybe they've been in business for 20 years and maybe they know what their key metrics are, like how many tires are sitting on that stack, or maybe how much ink is in that vat over there for their printing presses. They know those key metrics, but when you just throw a whole bunch of numbers up in front of them and say, here you go, this is why you paid us, and they look at it and go, that doesn't help me at all. The question is, can you take those numbers, which, okay, we're good at reading the matrix. That's what we went to school for. That's what we do. We read the matrix from a financial perspective, and we make a story out of it. This is, again, not making up things, not embellishing things, even though I do tell my wife that embellishing makes the story a little bit better. But in the context of financial information, if we were able to tell the story of why this is happening, then I think you would find that that the mom and pops out there, the smaller companies who really need this stuff, because larger companies are actually pretty good at this already, internally, like ingesting the information and doing this. It's the smaller companies, it's the backbone of America, it's the Main Street that I'm looking at that says, if we are going to provide a service to you, I need to put it in terms that you understand. And that doesn't mean that these Main Street businesses, we're not dumbing it down for them. We're putting it in their language. The same way that if I get pulled over by a tow truck in the South, all of a sudden I'm going to start dropping my G's and talk a little bit like this, so hopefully get a little, the cop's going to be like, hey, yeah, you can just go. The tow truck's going to be like, hey, yeah, you can jump in the cab and we'll go, you don't have to call your wife and get you over to the tow truck. You know what I mean? Whereas if I'm in Jersey, I might just change up my accent a little bit just so I can kind of fit in, maybe rip the sleeves off my shirt. The point is that we can tell stories, and we should tell stories. The question is, in the curriculum, what's the communication class that we all get in the business curriculum? It's how to write an email. It's how to say a speech. Those aren't business communications. Everybody knows how to do that already. Like you said, they come in, they already have the prowess of what to do in the business and how to communicate. Now, some of us are a little rough. They keep forwarding on those dumb jokes that HR says, don't do it anymore. It's not funny. But what I think we could do specifically at every college on the planet is introduce a storytelling curriculum, and it could be as simple as I started this soapbox moment with teaching at SCAD. The reason why I love teaching at SCAD is because you are dealing with creative people first, who have no wherewithal, well, maybe some experience, but they really don't have a passion for the accounting side, for the finance side. They just know at some point in the future that they're going to need it. If they want to work for themselves someday, they're going to need to know how to run a business.
That's right.
But
freelancers.
Oh man, what's great about them though is that they already know how to tell stories. And so I look at them and I say, it is easier for me to take a creative person and teach them how to do accounting than it is to take an accounting person and teach them how to be creative. It's very difficult. It's not, the gradients are completely different. Because we in our accounting sense, we like rules, we like boxes, we like guidelines. Whereas creatives, they're just like, they just live and enjoy, and it's like we're trying to hold their balloons down. It's like, no, you can't do that. And they're like, but just let me go, let me be free, and it's awesome. What would happen if you had a bunch of creatives come into the accounting industry and bring that energy and bring that creativity to the forefront? You would fundamentally change the accounting, not only accounting instruction, but the accounting industry, because all of a sudden people wouldn't be looked at as, oh yeah, it's an accountant over there. How do you know? You see how he looked at your shoes the entire time. You'd have people like that guy on stage that's kind of goofy, that girl over there that's dancing wildly, she's an accountant. Like, what?
And the storytelling, I think, I agree with you. I think storytelling is a huge skill that needs to be worked on. It's not just an after the fact type of thing. And it's also not something that a data visualization tool is going to fix, right? Because Tableau is great, Power BI is great, Excel is great, right? But you still need to get the story right. And it starts with knowing your audience, to your point, understanding the context and setting up the context, explaining the why, explaining the so what, what's the implication to the business. And that takes a certain degree of skill and practice. Practice. And I think that is certainly something that is missing right now in the curriculum. I agree with you. And it's something that I think is squeezed in if it is being taught. It's kind of squeezed in, or it's just talked about within the context of, a lesson or something like that. But I agree because I really think, I get frustrated often if, I'm sitting in a meeting and whoever it is comes to me and they have all this information and I can't figure out what is the story that you're trying to say. Like what's the headline, right? What's the
Yeah,
key takeaway? Those kinds
pull
of
these, connect these dots for me. I need to see
Yeah.
where's this thread going?
Yeah, to me, it's like to your point. It's not about dumbing it down, but sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
Right? And I know, and for accounting professionals, sometimes they feel as more is better, right? Oh, I have to include that bar chart, that pie, this trend, this, and the next thing you know, it's like you can't figure anything out.
Interesting way. So just about 3 days ago, my nephew, who graduated, we went to Old Dominion to play soccer, and then ended up transferring down to Flagler College right there near St. Augustine. So he's got his bachelor's in, I think, business management, what have you. And but he's working for an organization, and it's a small clinic, if you will. And he's been asked, or actually not asked, actually tasked with coming up with a dashboard that can give them the ability to, at a glance, see what they're doing financially. If, how many clinics are opening, what's the sales process look like, what's the throughput, things like that, revenues, expenses. And one of the things, so periodically what he'll do is he'll send me some things and say, hey, can you take a look at this and see if I'm on the right track? Well, the other day he sent me this dashboard that he worked on. And what I found interesting is that there was two things that immediately popped off the page. Now, I'm speaking from 25 years of experience in looking at dashboards and creating dashboards and going, yeah, that's not going to move the needle. And so right next to it, you have gross income, and literally right next to it was a box called net income. Mm-hmm. And it was maybe like $1,000 or $2,000 difference between the two. And I'm thinking, well, hey, what do you think? Let's really take a look at this. What are those two boxes telling you? If there's not that much of a difference between the gross and the net, then do we really need to be showing both of them? What is it about the net that we need to put up there? Because the net, at the end of the day, depending on how you're calculating this stuff, it may or may not move the needle. So then I took a look down at the bottom of his screen, and this was a test dashboard, right? Yeah. Of the 3 clinics that he had on there, 2 of them were right about the same as far as revenue and the number of patients that they're seeing. One was blowing it out of the water. And so now you're looking at a graph that there's 2 that are kind of hovering down on the bottom, and there's one way up here that's that in this context it's an anomaly. Right? There's something about, maybe this one has been in business for 5 years where these 2 just started in 6 months. Is it realistic to be able to compare those 2? Absolutely not. Because what you're not telling me how efficient these organizations are. This is the storytelling that I'm talking about. Yeah. Just putting something in a graph doesn't mean that everybody's going to understand what it's saying. Yeah. I can track where it's going. I can see that this one is making more money than this one just by virtue of where it is on the y-axis. But what is the story? Is it really more efficient? Because if this is the one that's making all the money, but it's also costing more money, then well, maybe at the end of the day, this one down here is making more money than this one because of all the expenses that are being poured into it. So those are the pieces of the story that we really, and it takes experience to be able to see that and then to relay that to business owners that, hey, listen, you're making a lot of money up here, but in the grand scheme of things, it's only 5% of your overall bottom line, because these down here are 50% of your bottom line. Yeah. Those are the types of nuggets that you only learn when you're actually in the business and you're gutting it out.
And I think it's interesting as I listen to you talk through that particular use case, if you will. Mm-hmm. I do think we need to do a better job of mentoring new professionals. Sure. They come into our firms, our organizations, and we put them to work right away. And how much time do we dedicate to really mentoring them and coaching them and helping them think through a business problem, or the way they might want to position something to an executive team before they walk into the room. I mean, I constantly hear stories from accounting and finance professionals who, are asked to work on these projects and are thrown into a conference room with no context, with no understanding of the audience, with no support from their manager, and it blows up, right? Because they're focused on delivering accurate, detailed information, and their audience wants to know, like, what's the bottom line? Mm-hmm. Right. So I think where we sometimes also miss the boat, and we all have a responsibility, right? You work at an organization where you're a leader, I'm a leader. We all have a responsibility to coach and mentor those people that report to us to help them be better and to help them understand the business context in which they're working.
Yeah, I know we spent a lion's share of the time that we've been talking about with young professionals coming in, because obviously that's where our heart is right now, because we see what's coming and we want to try to stave off as much of the damage as we can. The good thing is that there's plenty of amazing students that are out there that are going to be coming into our ranks over the next 3 to 5 years, and I think we're going to be fine. But what would you say, Mike, to the experienced professional who maybe has 7 to 10 to 15 years of experience inside accounting, inside business, who maybe wants to look at a career change, or maybe just a pivot, or maybe just to elevate their skill set? We call it upskilling now, right? That seems to be the buzzword. So that they can be taken seriously, so they can take that next step of maybe I want to have a side hustle and do something over here, or maybe I just want to be a better employee for these people who have taken care of me over the last 10, 15 years, and now I want to really deliver on that promise that I made early on, that I am going to be the best employee possible. Yeah. What is your how does the IMA look at those individuals, those experienced individuals, and what can the IMA do for them to elevate their presence, not only in the boardroom, but just in the office in and of itself?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I think professional associations like IMA exist to be the go-to resource for professionals at whatever stage of career they're in. So we have 140,000 members around the world. We're a global organization. We also have about 200 professional chapters. These are chapters that are run by volunteers, accounting and finance professionals, on the ground in their communities, delivering networking opportunities, education, job preparedness, tips and tricks, and those kinds of things. We try to create a platform where people, whether you're early career, mid-career, later career, you have a place to go where you can connect with people and help yourself improve from an upskilling perspective, or to make new contacts for potential job move. Oftentimes we hear from our chapter members and leaders, right? They lead these small businesses, chapters, that they get opportunities to apply leadership capability in a chapter that they're not getting at work. Right? So I'm stuck in my job. How do I grow my skill set? Well, one way is if you connect with a professional organization like IMA at the local level, you're going to get opportunities to speak. You're going to get opportunities to really demonstrate leadership, to be entrepreneurial, to be innovative, right? To be salesy, right? You have to promote and recruit new members to your chapter, right? These are project management. These are all good skills that can help you in positioning yourself for that next job. So between doing things like that and what I said earlier about continuous learning, investing in courses or webinars or events where you're going to learn something new, where you're going to be uncomfortable, right? That's again, you can't rest on your laurels, whether you have 10 years in, 40 years in, 3 years in. I think you always have to think about and be curious about what's out there that I need to know that's going to help me be better at supporting my organization or starting my own business or whatever the case, may be. So
yeah. So when an experienced professional comes to the IMA, whether they found you through the internet, through probably word of mouth that another accountant has told them, hey, you should be a part of this. Yeah. What is the process? What's the process for a professional to come and be a part of the the IMA and then become a credentialed individual? How does that work?
You know, it really starts. You can go to our website, imanet.org, and that will take you into a platform that would allow you to sign up, to volunteer, to become a member, to start your certification journey, to get connected to individuals who have been there, done that, and can maybe support you along the way. You know, it's pretty easy and straightforward. And I agree. Oftentimes, people find out about it through somebody else, somebody they work with, maybe a faculty member if you're a student. And what we're trying to do is, you know, raise the awareness of who we are, the career option that we provide, and then the platform for which people can really address the needs that they have that are customized and tailored. I will say, I know a lot of our conversation today has been spent on US. We are seeing a tremendous amount of interest in the accounting and finance profession from folks outside of the U.S. Some of our largest markets after the U.S. are India, China, the Middle East, the Asia-Pac region. And I get an opportunity to travel to all these countries where I get to meet members, I get to talk to CMAs, I get to talk to organization leaders, and they tell me what their pain points are and things like that. There's an incredible amount of enthusiasm and excitement for the profession of accounting. It's off the charts. And it's really, really inspiring when you get an opportunity to do that. So, you know, I think there's a lot of good stuff happening. And I think we just have to find a way to harness, you know, that energy and tell that story and keep pressing on.
So one of the things, I'm glad you went to the global side, because that's where I was going to go next, is that because you are a global organization, a lot of times when you're in the CPA world, the CPA designation is truly a United States designation, right? Everywhere else it's chartered accountant, right? But what makes that a little challenging is that there are rules. There are reporting rules in the United States under U.S. GAAP that are different than international accounting standards, right? The IFRS, if you will, and so it makes it challenging that if you were to take even though I think there's a little bit of reciprocity when if I were to go to London and say I'm a CPA, they'd probably be like, okay, you at least have the basic knowledge of chartered accountancy, but we do things a little bit differently here. We also speak a little bit differently, but but from that standpoint, your CMA designation, you don't have to worry about all the various rules and regulations of quote unquote reporting. You get to do, I mean, accounting is accounting is accounting is accounting. Whether it's in a certain industry and it has a certain mores and folkways that they do in, say, the oil and gas industry versus maybe the textile industry, it doesn't really matter what the reporting requirements are. It's not, you're rolling up your sleeves and you're in the midst of actually making these things and doing these things. And so your CMA actually is from a global designation. It actually would make more sense, because then it's a CMA in the state of Florida. That's right. It could be a CMA in Beijing, China.
That's right. Right. And it is, right? We call it a global passport for that reason.
I like that. I like that.
It's a global passport, right? Because you're absolutely right. The competencies, the principles, the concepts are the same, whether you're sitting in Beijing, Philippines, Europe somewhere, or the U.S. We do provide support for our non-U.S. candidates, where we do provide information and dedicated knowledge training in IFRS, for example, for those outside of the U.S. But for the most part, I think what you're saying is absolutely true. It's a global passport. The CPA is a license, right? So it's attached to a specific state. So yes, it's different in that regard from the CMA, which is more broadly applicable wherever you might be, working in that way.
Yeah, I see it akin to maybe the certified fraud examiner designation, right? So everywhere you go, you're rooting out fraud. It doesn't matter what the accounting principles are or in that particular region or country. It's that no, we're going after these guys for the bad things that they've done. And you start from the outside, you start going down, and so you get your man. No,
and Tim, a lot of our members too work for multinationals, right? So, they may, we have a lot of members, for example, in Philippines that are working for multinationals who have offshored some of their, back office accounting and finance capabilities. So, the multinational aspect of it also, plays well for the CMA because, it's a certification from a U.S. organization. And a lot of individuals value certifications from the U.S., right?
Sure.
It helps them, in terms of their reputation, their influence, their credibility, their job prospects. I hear their stories and they're very compelling. When I travel to India and Philippines and other places, what a certification like the CMA means to them and their family.
That's great.
Is off the charts. It's incredibly inspiring.
Well, I think that's a great note that we can walk out the door and close another chapter of Business Biceps and BS. But before we go, give me one more time. I am interested. I don't know anything about the IMA. I just heard about it from a buddy. I picked up a pamphlet. I was at a career fair. Something happened to where now I have some interest. How am I going to get involved with your organization?
All right, go to our website, imanet.org, or you can reach out to me directly, Michael DePrisco on LinkedIn. Look me up on LinkedIn. I have a lot of people that connect with me through LinkedIn and ask me questions, and I put them in touch with our team so that they can get the information. I try to be as accessible as I can to folks. So I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Well, Mike, I think this has been a wonderful discussion. I told you it wasn't going to feel like an hour, but we've been going for a good hour and change. I really appreciate you being here. If you would do me a favor, just tell all your friends about how awesome your experience was here, and I'll tell them that you have a really cool map behind you.
Okay, well, we'll do, Tim, for sure. For sure.
All right, brother. We'll be talking in the future. Thank you so much for inspiring the next generation and for making sure that everybody currently, with the passion that they have, just rooting that and making that on a bigger, bolder fire. So Mike DePrisco, CEO of the IMA, thank you for being here. We will catch up on the flip side.
Thank you.
All right, brother. Have a good day.
All right.
Bye-bye.